Officer Jake Martinez adjusted his police belt as he walked through the parking garage. His partner, Tommy Sullivan, followed close behind. Both men wore their dark blue uniforms with pride. Their shiny badges caught the light from the overhead lamps. "Another quiet day in paradise," Jake said with a smirk. They had been patrolling the Riverside district for 3 years. This was the rich part of town. Big houses, fancy cars, and lots of money. Jake liked working here because nothing bad ever happened. Tommy nodded and checked his watch. 2 more hours until shift ends. Maybe we can grab some coffee after this. The parking garage served the tall glass building next to it. Expensive cars filled most of the spaces. Mercedes, BMW, Lexus, all the brands that cost more than most people made in a year. Jake always wondered how people afforded such things. That's when they saw him. A black man walked between the cars. He wore a dark suit that looked expensive. His shoes were polished and his tie was straight. He carried a leather briefcase in one hand and checked his phone with the other. Jake stopped walking. He nudged Tommy with his elbow. "Look at that," Jake whispered. "What's he doing here?" Tommy looked where Jake was pointing. His eyes narrowed. "Doesn't look right to me." The man seemed to know where he was going. He walked with confidence toward a black BMW. He stopped next to it and put his briefcase down. Then he reached into his pocket. "He's going for something," Tommy said, his hand moving toward his radio. Jake shook his head. "Wait. Let's see what he does first." The man pulled out car keys, but Jake and Tommy were already walking toward him. Their footsteps echoed in the concrete garage. "Excuse me, sir," Jake called out. His voice was loud and sharp. The man turned around. He had kind eyes and a gentle face. He looked like he could be someone's father or teacher. But Jake and Tommy didn't see any of that. They only saw what they wanted to see. "Good afternoon, officers," the man said politely. His voice was calm and respectful. "Is there something I can help you with?" Jake crossed his arms. "We need to ask you some questions. What are you doing here?" The man seemed confused but stayed polite. "I have a meeting in the building next door. I parked my car here because the other lot was full." "Your car?" Tommy asked. He looked at the BMW with suspicion. "This is your car?" "Yes, sir." "Is there a problem?" Jake stepped closer. He was shorter than the man but tried to look tough. "We've had reports of someone breaking into cars in this area. You fit the description." This was a lie. There had been no reports. But Jake had done this many times before. Most people got scared when police questioned them. Even innocent people acted guilty when officers pressed them. "I understand your concern," the man said, "but I'm just here for a business meeting. I can show you my appointment confirmation if that would help." Tommy laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. "Sure, show us what you got." The man slowly reached into his jacket pocket. He moved carefully, knowing that sudden movements could be dangerous around nervous police officers. He pulled out his wallet and his phone. "Here's my driver's license," he said, offering his wallet to Jake. "And here's the email confirming my 2 p.m. meeting with Mr. Peterson from Peterson and Associates." Jake took the wallet but barely looked at the license. Instead, he stared at the man's face. "Marcus Washington," he read aloud. "Says here you live on Oak Street. That's across town. What brings you all the way over here?" "Business, as I mentioned," Marcus replied. His voice stayed calm, but his jaw tightened slightly. He had been through this before. Too many times. Tommy walked around the BMW, looking in the windows. "Nice car for someone from Oak Street," he said loudly. "How exactly do you afford something like this?" Other people in the garage started to notice. A woman getting into her car stopped to watch. A man coming back from the building slowed his steps. Marcus felt embarrassed, but he kept his dignity. "I work hard for everything I have," Marcus said simply. Jake handed back the wallet without really checking the information. "We're going to need you to step away from the vehicle. Put your hands where we can see them." Marcus's heart sank. He knew what was coming next, but he also knew that fighting back would only make things worse. So he did what he always did. He cooperated. He survived. And he remembered everything. Marcus raised his hands slowly. He kept them where the officers could see them. His briefcase sat on the ground next to the BMW. Other people in the garage stopped what they were doing to watch. "Turn around and put your hands on the car," Jake ordered. His voice was harder now. He felt powerful giving commands to someone in an expensive suit. Marcus did as he was told. The metal of the car felt cold against his palms. "Officers, I really don't understand what's happening here. I've shown you my identification. I've explained why I'm here." Tommy radioed for backup. "Unit 47 requesting assistance at the Riverside Plaza parking garage. We have a suspicious person." "Backup?" Marcus asked, turning his head slightly. "Is that really necessary?" "Eyes forward," Jake snapped. "Don't move unless we tell you to." Jake began searching Marcus's pockets. He found car keys, a phone, some business cards, and a money clip with cash. Nothing illegal, nothing suspicious. But Jake wasn't looking for evidence of a crime. He was enjoying the control. "Lot of cash here," Jake said, holding up the money clip. "Where'd you get all this money?" "From my bank," Marcus replied. His voice stayed level, but inside he felt angry and humiliated. "Is carrying cash illegal now?" Tommy walked back from the radio. "Backup's on the way." "You know what I think, Jake? I think this guy's up to something. Rich car, expensive clothes, lots of cash. Something doesn't add up." A small crowd had formed. People pretended to walk to their cars, but moved slowly so they could watch. Some took pictures with their phones. Marcus felt embarrassed. Here he was, a successful professional, being treated like a criminal in public. "I work in finance," Marcus said. "I'm here for a legitimate business meeting. You can call the office and confirm." Jake laughed. "Finance? You? Come on. What kind of finance?" "Investment consulting," Marcus answered. "I help companies manage their money." Tommy shook his head. "Right. And I'm the mayor. Look, buddy, we both know you don't belong in this neighborhood. People like you need to understand that." The words hit Marcus like a slap. "People like me." "You know what I mean," Tommy said with a smirk. "This is a nice area. Quiet. Safe. We like to keep it that way." 2 more police cars arrived. 4 additional officers got out and walked over. Now Marcus was surrounded by 6 police officers. The situation had grown completely out of control. "What do we have here?" asked Sergeant Davis, one of the new arrivals. "Suspicious person," Jake reported. "Claims he belongs here, but you know how that goes." Sergeant Davis looked Marcus up and down. "ID." Jake handed over Marcus's license. "Marcus Washington. Lives on Oak Street." "That's across town," another officer noted. "Long way from home, aren't you?" Marcus felt tired. How many times would he have to explain himself? "I have a business meeting. In the building right there. At 2 p.m. with Peterson and Associates." One of the officers laughed. "Peterson and Associates. The law firm. What would they want with you?" The question was so insulting that Marcus almost lost his composure. Almost. But he had learned long ago that showing anger to police officers only made things worse for people who looked like him. "Perhaps you should call them and ask," Marcus suggested calmly. Jake made Marcus sit on the curb. "We're going to run a background check. See if you have any warrants or anything." Marcus sat down on the concrete. His expensive suit would probably get dirty, but he had no choice. People walking by stared at him. Some looked sympathetic. Others seemed to assume he had done something wrong. The officers stood around talking and laughing while they waited for the background check results. They acted like Marcus wasn't even there, like he was just another part of their job, something to be processed. 20 minutes passed. The background check came back clean, as Marcus knew it would. No warrants. No criminal record, not even a parking ticket. Jake seemed disappointed. All right, you're clean. For now. They let Marcus stand up. His knees were stiff from sitting on the hard curb. Here's some free advice, Tommy said, handing back Marcus's license. Stay in areas where you belong. This neighborhood has security cameras everywhere. We'll be watching. Marcus put his license back in his wallet. His hands were steady, but his mind was racing. He memorized their badge numbers. 1247 for Jake Martinez, 892 for Tommy Sullivan. He would not forget this day. The officers walked away, leaving Marcus alone by his car. He picked up his briefcase and checked his watch. He was now late for his meeting. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was how normal this felt. How many times had he been through something like this? How many more times would it happen? Marcus got in his car and drove to his meeting. But he made himself a promise. This time would be different. This time, there would be consequences. Marcus sat in his home office that evening. His laptop was open in front of him. The screen showed the police department's complaint form. His wife, Sarah, brought him a cup of coffee and sat down beside him. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Sarah asked. She had heard these stories before. Nothing ever changed. "I have to," Marcus replied. His fingers moved across the keyboard. "If good people do nothing, bad people keep winning." He typed carefully. He included every detail he could remember. The time, the place, the badge numbers. He wrote about how the officers treated him, how they searched him for no reason, how they made him sit on the curb like a criminal. Marcus also gathered evidence. He found the security camera footage from the parking garage. He got witness statements from people who saw what happened. One woman even gave him her phone video of the incident. The next morning, Marcus drove to the police station. He walked up to the front desk with his complaint folder. The officer behind the desk looked bored. "I'd like to file a formal complaint," Marcus said politely. The desk officer sighed. "Fill out this form. Someone will get back to you. I already filled it out online. Here's the printed copy with supporting documents." The officer took the folder without looking inside. He stamped it with a date and tossed it into a large box filled with other papers. "What happens next?" Marcus asked. "Internal Affairs will review it. They'll call you if they need more information." Marcus left the station feeling hopeful. Maybe this time would be different. 3 days later, Sergeant Rodriguez from Internal Affairs looked at Marcus's complaint. He read the first page and rolled his eyes. Another citizen trying to cause trouble. He had seen 1,000 complaints like this. Rodriguez didn't watch the security video. He didn't read the witness statements. He just wrote a short note in the file. No evidence of wrongdoing. Officers were conducting routine security check. Complaint dismissed. The file went into a filing cabinet with hundreds of other dismissed complaints. Meanwhile, Jake and Tommy heard about the complaint from their supervisor, Lieutenant Barnes. They were eating lunch in the police station cafeteria when Barnes sat down at their table. "Heads up, guys. Some citizen filed a complaint about you too. Something about racial profiling." Jake nearly choked on his sandwich. "Are you serious? That guy from the parking garage?" "Must be," Tommy said, laughing. "What a waste of time." Lieutenant Barnes shrugged. "Don't worry about it. Rodriguez already looked at it. Says there's nothing there. Just make sure you write good reports next time." The three men laughed together. They had been through this before. Complaints came and went. Nothing ever happened to officers who did their jobs. The department always protected its own. That afternoon, Jake and Tommy went back to their patrol car. They felt even more confident than before. The system had proven once again that they were untouchable. "Can you believe that guy?" Jake said as they drove through downtown. "Thinks he can get us in trouble just because we asked him some questions." "These people," Tommy replied, "they always want to play victim. Like we're the bad guys for keeping the streets safe." They drove past a group of black teenagers walking home from school. Tommy slowed the car down. "Should we check them out?" he asked. Jake looked at the kids. They were wearing school uniforms and carrying backpacks. They were just walking down the sidewalk, bothering no one. "Nah," Jake said finally. "Let's get some coffee instead." But the idea was planted. If they could stop a businessman in an expensive suit and nothing happened, what couldn't they do? Back at home, Marcus waited for a phone call that never came. After 2 weeks, he called the police station himself. "This is Marcus Washington. I filed a complaint 2 weeks ago. Can you tell me the status?" The voice on the other end was cold. "Let me check. Yes, here it is. Your complaint was reviewed and dismissed. No evidence of misconduct." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Dismissed. But I have video evidence. I have witnesses. The investigation is closed. Mr. Washington, have a good day." The line went dead. Marcus stared at his phone. Sarah found him sitting in silence in his office. "They dismissed it," he said quietly. "They didn't even look at the evidence." Sarah put her hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry, honey. Maybe it's time to let this go." Marcus shook his head. He thought about all the other people who had been through this, all the complaints that got buried, all the officers who never faced consequences. "No," he said firmly. "This isn't over. Not even close." 2 weeks after the complaint was dismissed, Jake and Tommy felt like kings of the street. They had gotten away with everything. Now they were ready to push even further. It was a Tuesday morning when they spotted a young black man walking near the university. He wore a backpack and carried textbooks. Kevin Johnson was a college student heading to his morning class. "Look at this one," Tommy said, pointing through the car window. "What's he doing in this area so early?" Jake nodded. "Let's check him out." They pulled their police car next to Kevin. The young man looked nervous when he saw them. "Hey, you," Jake called out. "Come here." Kevin walked over slowly. His hands shook a little. "Yes, officers." "What are you doing here?" Tommy demanded. "I'm going to class." "I go to the university." Kevin pointed down the street toward the campus. "Show us some ID," Jake said. "And we want to search that backpack." Kevin handed over his student ID. Inside his backpack were only books and notebooks, but the officers made him empty everything onto the sidewalk anyway. Students walking by stopped to watch. "Stay out of trouble," Tommy warned as they finally let Kevin go. The young man gathered his books quickly and hurried away. Jake and Tommy smiled at each other. This was too easy. The next day, they stopped Richard Green, a black business owner walking to his shop. They made him prove the store was really his. They checked his keys, called the phone number on his business card, and searched him anyway, just making sure everything's legitimate. Jake explained to the small crowd that had gathered. Richard felt embarrassed and angry, but like Marcus, he knew better than to argue with police officers. On Friday, they stopped elderly Mr. Williams while he walked his dog. The 70-year-old man moved slowly with his cane, but that didn't stop the officers from questioning him. "This is a nice neighborhood," Tommy said. "You sure you belong here?" Mr. Williams had lived in the area for 30 years, but he patiently explained this to the officers while his small dog sat quietly beside him. Each time, the officers followed the same pattern. They demanded ID. They searched without reason. They made people feel like criminals for walking while black. And each time, they got away with it. By now, other officers had heard the stories. During their lunch breaks, Jake and Tommy shared their adventures with their colleagues. "You should have seen the college kid," Jake laughed. "Thought he was so smart with his books and everything." Officer Martinez from another unit shook his head. "You guys are crazy. Aren't you worried about more complaints?" "Please," Tommy replied. "We already learned that complaints don't matter. Internal affairs throws them all away anyway." Lieutenant Barnes overheard the conversation. Instead of stopping them, he slapped Jake on the back. "Just make sure you write good reports," Barnes said with a wink. "Keep the streets safe, voice. The culture of the police station encouraged this behavior. Officers saw citizens as the enemy. They believed their badges gave them unlimited power. Meanwhile, Marcus was busy. He had started attending community meetings. He met other people who had similar experiences with Jake and Tommy. Kevin Johnson's mother contacted him after hearing about his story. Richard Green reached out through a mutual friend. Even Mr. Williams's daughter found Marcus's phone number. "This has to stop," Kevin's mother said during a meeting at Marcus's house. "My son is afraid to walk to school now." Marcus took notes as each person shared their story. The pattern was clear. Jake Martinez and Tommy Sullivan were targeting black citizens throughout the city. "We need to document everything," Marcus said. "Every incident, every witness, every piece of evidence." Sarah helped organize the information. They created files for each victim. They collected photos, videos, and written statements. "The police department won't listen to one complaint," Marcus explained to the group. "But maybe they'll listen to 20. However, Marcus was learning that the problem went deeper than just two officers. The whole system protected people like Jake and Tommy. Local news reporters showed little interest in their story. "Police misconduct is not really news anymore," one journalist told Marcus. "Unless someone gets hurt, it's hard to get people to care." But Marcus refused to give up. He knew that somewhere, somehow, there had to be justice. Jake and Tommy continued their patrol, feeling more powerful each day. They had no idea that their actions were being watched, documented, and remembered. They thought their badges made them untouchable. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The police station buzzed with excitement on Monday morning. Word had spread quickly through the building. Chief Thompson was finally retiring after 30 years of service. Everyone wondered who would replace him. Jake and Tommy sat in the break room drinking coffee. They had worked under Chief Thompson for their entire careers. He had always protected his officers. He never questioned their methods. "I hope the new chief is like Thompson," Jake said. "Someone who understands police work." "Yeah," Tommy agreed. "Someone who knows that we need to be tough to keep the streets safe." Lieutenant Barnes walked into the break room. "All officers report to the main auditorium at 10 a.m. They're announcing the new chief today." The auditorium filled quickly. Over 200 officers packed into the large room. Some sat in chairs, others stood along the walls. Everyone talked quietly about who the new chief might be. Sergeant Rodriguez from Internal Affairs sat near the front. He looked bored, as usual. He had heard rumors that the new chief came from outside the department. Rodriguez didn't like outsiders. At exactly 10 a.m., Mayor Johnson walked onto the stage. The room became quiet. Behind him came several city council members and the head of the police union. "Good morning, everyone," Mayor Johnson began. "Today marks a new chapter for our police department. After months of searching, we have selected someone with outstanding qualifications." Jake leaned over to Tommy. "Probably some old white guy from another city." "Yeah," Tommy whispered back. "All cops are the same anyway." The mayor continued. "Our new chief has 25 years of experience in law enforcement. He has worked in 3 major cities. He has a master's degree in criminal justice and has won numerous awards for community service." Officer Martinez from another unit raised his hand. "Where's he from?" "He most recently served as deputy chief in Chicago," the mayor replied. "Before that, he was a captain in Detroit and started his career in Los Angeles." The officers nodded. Big city experience was good. Someone from Chicago would understand tough police work. "Our new chief believes in strong law enforcement," Mayor Johnson said. "But he also believes in building trust with the community. He has reduced crime rates everywhere he has worked." Jake and Tommy exchanged looks. Community trust sounded like politics to them. Real police work was about being firm with criminals. "Ladies and gentlemen," the mayor announced, "please welcome your new chief of police, Marcus Washington." The room erupted in polite applause. Then a man in a crisp police uniform walked onto the stage. He was tall and confident. His uniform was perfect, with ribbons and badges showing his years of service. Jake stopped clapping. His mouth fell open. Tommy's face turned white. He grabbed Jake's arm. The man on stage was the same man they had humiliated in the parking garage, the man they had made sit on the curb, the man whose complaint they had laughed about. Marcus Washington stood at the podium and looked out at the crowd. His eyes moved slowly across the room. He seemed calm and in control. "Thank you for that warm welcome," Marcus said in a strong, clear voice. "I'm honored to lead this department." Jake felt sick to his stomach. This couldn't be happening. The man they had treated like a criminal was now their boss, their ultimate boss. Other officers around them continued to applaud. They had no idea what Jake and Tommy were feeling. "I bring 25 years of experience to this position," Marcus continued. "I have seen what works and what doesn't work in law enforcement. I believe in protecting and serving all citizens equally." Tommy slouched in his chair. He hoped Marcus wouldn't remember them. Maybe he wouldn't recognize their faces among so many officers. Marcus continued his speech. "I know that change can be difficult, but I promise you that good officers who do their jobs properly have nothing to fear from me." The emphasis on properly seemed to echo through the room. "However," Marcus said, his voice becoming firmer, "officers who abuse their power or violate citizens' rights will face consequences under my leadership." Jake and Tommy exchanged terrified looks. Marcus's words seemed directed right at them. After the speech, officers gathered in small groups to discuss their new chief. Most seemed optimistic about the change. "He seems tough but fair," one officer said. "Yeah, and all that big city experience will help," another added. Jake and Tommy walked to their patrol car in silence. Both men knew their comfortable days were over. The man they had humiliated was now the most powerful person in their world. As they drove out of the station parking lot, Jake finally spoke. "We're in serious trouble." Tommy nodded. "What do we do now?" Neither man had an answer. For the first time in their careers, Jake Martinez and Tommy Sullivan felt afraid. Chief Marcus Washington arrived at the police station at 6 a.m. on his first day. The building was mostly empty, but he wanted to start early. He had work to do. His office was on the 3rd floor. It had large windows overlooking the city. The previous chief had decorated it with hunting photos and sports memorabilia. Marcus had all of it removed. He wanted a fresh start. At 8 a.m., Marcus called his first staff meeting. All supervisors had to attend. Sergeants, lieutenants, and captains filled the conference room. They looked nervous. "Good morning," Marcus began. He stood at the head of the table, not sitting like the old chief used to do. "I want to talk about changes that start today." Lieutenant Barnes shifted in his chair. "What kind of changes, Chief?" Marcus opened a folder in front of him. "First, every officer will now wear a body camera. No exceptions. The cameras must be turned on during every interaction with the public." Sergeant Rodriguez frowned. "Chief, we've been doing fine without those cameras for years." "That ends today," Marcus replied firmly. "Second, all complaints from citizens will be thoroughly investigated. No more quick dismissals. No more burial in filing cabinets." The supervisors exchanged uncomfortable looks. They liked the old system where complaints disappeared. "Third," Marcus continued, "I'm creating a civilian oversight board. Community members will review our policies and procedures." Captain Williams spoke up. "Sir, with respect, the community doesn't understand police work." Marcus's voice remained calm but strong. "The community is who we serve. They have every right to hold us accountable." The meeting lasted 2 hours. Marcus announced many other changes: random patrol reviews, mandatory training on bias and civil rights, new policies on use of force. "I know some of you are thinking this is too much change too fast," Marcus said as the meeting ended. "But let me be clear. Good officers who treat all citizens with respect will thrive under these new policies." He paused and looked around the room. "Officers who cannot follow these standards will find other careers. After the supervisors left, Marcus called Sergeant Rodriguez to stay behind. "I want to see all complaint files from the past year," Marcus said. Rodriguez looked uncomfortable. "All of them, sir. Every single one. And I want them this afternoon." That afternoon, Rodriguez brought 3 large boxes to Marcus's office. He dropped them heavily on the desk. "Here they are, Chief. Most of them were solved already." Marcus opened the first box. He could see that many files were thin. Too thin for real investigations. "Thank you, Sergeant. You can go now." After Rodriguez left, Marcus began reading. File after file showed the same pattern. Minimal investigation. Quick dismissals. No follow-up with complainants. He found his own complaint in the second box. The file was even thinner than he expected. Rodriguez had written only 1 paragraph dismissing it. The video evidence Marcus had provided was still in its unopened envelope. Marcus picked up his phone and called his secretary. "Please schedule individual meetings with Officers Martinez and Sullivan tomorrow morning." "Both of them together, sir?" "No," Marcus said. "Separately. 1 hour each." That evening, word spread through the police station about the new policies. Most officers were worried. The old ways were comfortable. The new ways meant they had to be more careful. Jake and Tommy met for drinks after their shift. They sat in a dark corner of a bar popular with police officers. "Did you hear about the body cameras?" Jake asked. His hand shook as he lifted his beer. "And the complaint reviews," Tommy added. "He's going to look at everything." "Maybe he won't remember us," Jake said hopefully. "There are a lot of officers in the department." Tommy shook his head. "He remembers. Did you see how he looked at us during the speech?" At the police station, Marcus worked late into the night. He read every complaint file. He made notes about patterns and problem officers. Names kept appearing over and over. Martinez and Sullivan topped the list. Marcus thought about his meeting with them tomorrow. He had no desire for revenge. But he had a duty to the citizens of this city, a duty to make sure what happened to him never happened to anyone else. He looked at his watch. It was almost midnight. Time to go home to Sarah. Tomorrow would be a very important day. Jake and Tommy had no idea what was coming. They would learn that their new chief meant every word he had said. The old days of doing whatever they wanted were over. Change had come to the police department. And it started with 2 officers who thought their badges made them untouchable. Jake Martinez sat outside Chief Washington's office at 9 a.m. sharp. His uniform was pressed, and his shoes were polished, but his hands were sweating. He had barely slept the night before. The secretary looked up from her desk. "Officer Martinez, the chief will see you now." Jake walked into the office. It looked completely different from Chief Thompson's old setup. Clean, professional, and serious. Marcus sat behind his desk reviewing a thick file. "Please sit down, Officer Martinez," Marcus said without looking up. Jake sat in the chair across from the desk. He tried to appear confident, but his leg bounced nervously under the table. Marcus finally looked up. His eyes met Jake's directly. There was no anger there, just cold professionalism. "Do you know why you're here?" Marcus asked. Jake cleared his throat. "I assume it's about my work performance." "Sir." Marcus opened the file in front of him. "This is your personnel record. 6 years on the force. Multiple complaints from citizens, all dismissed by internal affairs." "Sir, those complaints were false. People sometimes." Marcus held up his hand for silence. "I've reviewed all the evidence. Security footage, witness statements, even cell phone videos." Jake's stomach dropped. He had hoped the evidence had been destroyed or lost. "I want to ask you about a specific incident," Marcus continued. 3 weeks ago, Riverside Plaza parking garage. Do you remember that day?" Jake's mouth went dry. "Sir, we were just doing our job, investigating suspicious activity." "Suspicious activity?" Marcus leaned back in his chair. "A well-dressed businessman going to a legitimate meeting is suspicious." "We didn't know that at the time," Jake said weakly. Marcus pulled out a photo from the file. It showed Jake searching Marcus by the car while people watched. "What you did to me that day was wrong," Marcus said quietly. "But what's worse is that it wasn't the first time, or the last time." Jake started to speak, but Marcus cut him off. "I've spoken with Kevin Johnson, the college student, Richard Green, the business owner, Mr. Williams, the elderly man walking his dog." Marcus's voice grew stronger. "Do you see a pattern here, Officer Martinez?" "Chief, I can explain." "No," Marcus said firmly. "You cannot explain why you target black citizens for no reason other than their skin color. You cannot explain why you abuse the power this badge represents." Jake felt trapped. All his excuses sounded hollow when faced with the evidence. "You're suspended without pay, effective immediately," Marcus announced. "Turn in your badge and weapon." "Sir, please. This job is all I have. I have a family." "You should have thought about that before you decided to humiliate innocent people," Marcus replied. "A full investigation will determine if you keep your job." Jake slowly removed his badge and placed it on the desk. His hand shook as he unholstered his weapon and set it down too. "You can go now," Marcus said. "Security will escort you out of the building." An hour later, Tommy Sullivan was led into the same office. He had heard about Jake's suspension from other officers. His face was pale and his eyes were red. "Officer Sullivan," Marcus began, "I believe you know why you're here." Tommy nodded miserably. "Yes, sir. I've already spoken with your partner. He's been suspended pending investigation. Now it's your turn." Marcus opened Tommy's file. It looked very similar to Jake's. Multiple complaints, all dismissed. A pattern of targeting black citizens. "I remember what you said to me that day," Marcus said. "You told me that people like me should know our place. What did you mean by that?" Tommy looked down at his hands. "I don't know, sir. I was wrong." "Yes, you were wrong. Very wrong." Marcus's voice remained calm but firm. "You took an oath to protect and serve all citizens. Instead, you used your badge to intimidate and humiliate people based on their race." "I'm sorry," Tommy whispered. "I'm sure you are sorry," Marcus replied. "Sorry you got caught. Sorry you're facing consequences. But are you sorry for the pain you caused innocent people?" Tommy couldn't answer. The truth was, he had never thought about how his actions affected others. Until now. "You're also suspended without pay," Marcus announced. "Badge and weapon on the desk." Tommy placed his badge and gun next to where Jake's had been. Two symbols of authority that had been misused for too long. "This investigation will be thorough," Marcus said as Tommy stood to leave. "Every complaint, every incident, every witness will be interviewed. If the evidence shows what I believe it will show, you'll be terminated." After both officers left, Marcus sat alone in his office. He looked at the two badges on his desk. They represented everything good and bad about police work. He picked up his phone and called the head of internal affairs. "This is Chief Washington. I need you to reopen every complaint involving Officers Martinez and Sullivan. Full investigation. No shortcuts this time." Justice had been a long time coming, but it was finally here. News of Jake and Tommy's suspension spread quickly through the police station. Officers gathered in small groups, whispering and arguing about the new chief's actions. Some officers supported the changes. Officer Maria Gonzalez had worked for 10 years and had always done her job honestly. She welcomed the new policies. "It's about time someone cleaned up this mess," she told her partner. "I'm tired of good cops getting a bad reputation because of people like Martinez and Sullivan." But other officers were angry. They felt like Chief Washington was attacking their brotherhood. Sergeant Collins had been friends with Jake for years. "This is wrong," Collins complained during lunch. "We stick together in this job. We don't throw each other under the bus." Officer Peterson nodded in agreement. "The chief doesn't understand how things work here. You can't police effectively if you're always worried about complaints." These resistant officers began meeting secretly after work. They complained to their union representative. Some even called city council members to criticize the new chief. Meanwhile, Jake and Tommy sat at home, angry and desperate. Without their paychecks, money became tight quickly. Jake's wife was furious with him. "How could you be so stupid?" she yelled. "We have a mortgage to pay." Tommy decided to fight back. He called other officers he thought would support him. Many wouldn't even take his calls. A few agreed to meet. "The new chief has it out for us," Tommy told a group of 5 officers. "Today it's me and Jake. Tomorrow it could be any of you." Officer Davis looked uncomfortable. "Maybe you guys did something wrong. I've seen your reports. They're pretty thin." "Whose side are you on?" Jake demanded. "I'm on the side of doing the job right," Davis replied. He left the meeting early. One by one, most officers distanced themselves from Jake and Tommy. They saw which way the wind was blowing. The old ways weren't coming back. Chief Washington continued his reforms. He attended community meetings in neighborhoods that had complained about police behavior. He listened to citizens' concerns and promised changes. At one meeting, Mrs. Johnson stood up. She was Kevin's mother, the college student who had been stopped. "My son was afraid to walk to school because of how your officers treated him," she said. "What are you going to do about it?" Marcus looked her in the eye. "I've already started, ma'am. The officers who harassed your son are suspended. There will be consequences for their actions." The room erupted in surprised murmurs. People hadn't expected such a direct answer. "But that's not enough," Marcus continued. "We need to rebuild trust. That takes time and consistent action." Some community leaders remained skeptical. Pastor Williams had dealt with police problems for 20 years. "We've heard promises before," he said. "How do we know this is different?" Marcus nodded. "You don't. You'll have to judge us by our actions, not our words. But I can promise you this. Any officer who abuses their power will face consequences." Back at the station, the changes were becoming real. Body cameras were installed. New training sessions began. Officers learned about bias and community relations. Some veteran officers struggled with the changes. They had worked the old way for decades. But younger officers adapted quickly. They saw the benefits of better community relationships. Detective Sarah Chen had always wanted to be a police officer to help people. Under the old chief, she felt frustrated by the department's reputation. "I'm proud to wear this badge again," she told her colleagues. "Finally, we're acting like real public servants." The union tried to fight the changes. They filed grievances about the new policies. They complained that officers were being treated unfairly. But Chief Washington had support from the mayor and city council. Crime statistics started improving as community cooperation increased. Citizens began calling police with tips and information they had withheld before. 3 months after Marcus took over, the department looked completely different. Not every officer was happy, but discipline had improved dramatically. Jake and Tommy's investigation continued. More witnesses came forward. Video evidence piled up. Their fate became clearer each day. Some officers still grumbled about the changes. They met in bars and complained about the new way of policing. But they were a shrinking minority. The majority of officers realized something important. Good policing meant serving all citizens fairly. Chief Washington wasn't their enemy. He was showing them how to be better cops. Change was hard, but it was necessary. And slowly, it was working. 6 months after their suspension, Jake Martinez and Tommy Sullivan received the news they had been dreading. Both men sat in the police union office with their lawyer. The union representative read the final investigation report. The investigation found multiple violations of civil rights, abuse of power, and racial profiling, he announced. The department has decided to terminate both officers immediately. Jake slammed his fist on the table. "This is unfair. We were just doing our jobs." The lawyer shook his head. "The evidence is overwhelming. Security videos, witness statements, phone recordings. There's no way to appeal this decision." Tommy sat quietly, staring at the floor. He had known this day would come. The investigation had uncovered years of misconduct. Not just the incident with Marcus, but dozens of other cases. The police union had tried to protect them, but even they couldn't ignore the evidence. Too many citizens had come forward. Too many videos had surfaced. Later that day, Chief Washington addressed the entire police department in the main auditorium. Officers filled every seat. The mood was serious but hopeful. "Today marks an important moment for our department," Marcus began. "Two former officers have been terminated for serious misconduct. This should serve as a reminder to everyone here." He paused and looked around the room. Many officers nodded in agreement. "This badge is not a license to abuse power," Marcus continued. "It's a symbol of service to all citizens, regardless of their race, background, or neighborhood." Officer Gonzalez applauded first. Soon, most of the auditorium joined in. The applause wasn't loud, but it was sincere. "I know change has been difficult," Marcus said, "but our crime rates are down 20%. Citizen complaints about racial profiling have dropped 70%. Community cooperation is at an all-time high." These numbers told the real story. The reforms were working. After the meeting, Marcus met with the victims of Jake and Tommy's misconduct. Kevin Johnson, the college student, came with his mother. Richard Green brought his business partner. Mr. Williams arrived with his daughter. "I wanted to personally thank you all for your courage," Marcus told them. "Speaking up wasn't easy, but it made justice possible." Kevin's mother wiped away tears. "My son can walk to school without fear now. That means everything to us." Richard Green shook Marcus's hand. "You've shown us that not all police officers are the same. Thank you for restoring our faith." Meanwhile, Jake and Tommy struggled to find new jobs. Other police departments wouldn't hire them because of their records. Private security companies rejected their applications. Jake finally found work as a security guard at a shopping mall. The pay was much less than police work. His family had to sell their house and move to a smaller apartment. Tommy got a job driving the delivery truck. He spent long hours alone, thinking about his mistakes. Sometimes he wondered how different his life could have been if he had treated people with respect. Both men learned a hard lesson. Actions have consequences. 1 year after becoming chief, Marcus received an award from the city council for improving police-community relations. He stood at the podium where he had first been introduced to the department. "This award doesn't belong to me alone," he said. "It belongs to every officer who chose to serve with integrity. It belongs to every citizen who had the courage to demand better." Marcus looked out at the audience. He saw police officers sitting next to community leaders, black and white, young and old, all working together for a safer city. "When I was treated badly in that parking garage," Marcus continued, "I could have become bitter and angry. Instead, I chose to use that experience to create positive change." Sarah, his wife, smiled proudly from the front row. "Real strength isn't about having power over others," Marcus concluded. "It's about using whatever power you have to lift others up." The audience stood and applauded. The transformation was complete. Jake and Tommy had thought their badges made them untouchable. They learned that true power comes from serving others with dignity and respect. Marcus Washington had proven that justice, though sometimes delayed, would always find a way to shine through the darkness.